So going down this weekend, we have one of the most stacked cards of the entire year, and that is UFC 320 Ankalaev versus Pereira 2. And in this video, I will be giving you my full card breakdown along with a prediction for every single fight on the card. And listen, man, I cannot wait to discuss these fights because this main event right here, it is not only super intriguing stylistically, but we got some heat coming into it this time around, right? Everything's kind of been going Poatan's way at 205 pounds until he ran into Magomed Ankalaev, right? And Poatan says that, listen, hey, man, I wasn't myself coming in to the very first fight. And then Ankalaev is saying, listen, this just ain't a rematch for Alex Pereira. This is another shot for me to go out there and put a stamp on this saga between us. So amazing main event on deck, man. And listen, the co-main event, very, very interesting stylistic matchup here because Merab Dvalishvili, we all know this guy's an alien. He's an absolute machine. He's been rolling through everybody inside his weight class, and the guy across from him is being overlooked and counted out by so many people, and that is Cory Sandhagen. And look, if there's ever a wizard out there that can design some sort of formula to go out there and solve such a difficult puzzle, I feel like it could be someone like Cory Sandhagen. But will he have the answers for Merab come fight night, man? Super interesting main event here against just a crazy hard matchup to deal with in Merab Dvalishvili. But the fan favorite fight here basically is Jiri Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree Jr., right? Two outstanding strikers, two super dangerous guys. And when they get in there, it is going to be absolute mayhem. And depending on how that main event plays out, this just might be a title eliminator bout, right? I know Carlos Ulberg just went out there and got a super impressive KO over Dominic Reyes, but given how much of a fan favorite Jiri is, if he could go out there and pull this thing off, he just might be someone that gets his name thrown in for the very next title shot. So an absolute banger here. And then this fight right here, Josh Emmett, he's back in action, right? One of the most dangerous power strikers in the featherweight division against Mr. Speedy Gonzalez, Youssef Zalal, who's been rattling off some wins ever since coming back into the UFC. He's turned a page in his career. He's looking like a problem at 145 pounds. And then this fight right here, man, this is one of my most anticipated fights for me on this card, is Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov. Two guys that have just been on a roll inside the middleweight division. Two, I guess you could say, prospects to a degree, right? They're established guys, have been around long enough, but they're really starting to look to make that jump into the upper echelon of a stacked middleweight division, stylistically super intriguing. And then we got Ateba Gautier, one of the hot prospects on the rise in the UFC in the middleweight division. People are saying this is the next Francis Ngannou. We got some big names on this card. We got some great stylistic matchups. Let's hop right into it with the very first fight of the night. We have Veronica versus Brogan Walker. To me, this is a very straightforward fight, and it should be a very easy pick, and that is Veronica winning this fight by decision. Listen, not only does Veronica have Dan Hardy in her corner, right, her husband, we all know that Dan Hardy is the MMA wizard, right? He's a meticulous game planner, and he is in the ear of Veronica, and he always has her prepared for these fights. And I feel like that is a huge advantage coming into a lot of these fights for Veronica, right? But at the end of the day, she's the one that has to get in there and perform. And this is more about what Brogan necessarily hasn't done in her career and what Veronica has been doing in her career, right? The last win from Brogan was 4 years ago, right? And ever since she came into the UFC, it just hasn't looked good. She got ground and pounded out by Juliana Miller. That has not aged well. Then goes out there and loses a decision to Yasmin Lucindo, but Lucindo's pretty good. But what we've seen from Veronica, right? Yes, she lost to Malecki, but then she goes out there and beats Juliana Miller by decision, who TKO'd Walker, right? Then she goes out there and gets a close split decision against Jamie Lynn Horth. Goes out there, beats, an old, washed up, just kind of moving heavy bag in JJ Aldridge. But she is coming off of a loss to Eduarda Mora, who is a pretty game opponent, right? So I take that one with a little bit of a grain of salt. But Brogan Walker, she moves forward. She just kind of throws these big slinging shots that don't have much technique on them. She's not particularly great on the ground. Veronica Hardy, I think she'll stick and move, utilize good footwork, good lateral movement, and kind of pick and poke shots and just outscore Brogan Walker and beat her by decision. I think that this is a very easy pick here. Given nothing crazy happens, it's WMMA, you never know. But Veronica Hardy, she's going to be very prepared, working with Dan coming into this. Their game plan, in my opinion, will be stick and move, pick their shots, mix things up to the body, maybe even mix in some level changes to keep Walker guessing. Veronica Hardy, I think, coasts and wins a very easy decision over a non-UFC caliber Brogan Walker. Next, we have Ramiz Brahimaj versus Austin Vanderford. I went back and forth on this fight, man, and I feel like it may come around to Sunday when I'm doing my full card recap to where I look back and I go, this fight haunted me. This prediction haunted me. But when I dig into the film, I feel like it's like, look, I was looking at Ramiz Brahimaj and I'm like, look, man, this guy's rattled off 2 nice wins. Goes out there and KOs Mickey Gall, but I'm like, that's Mickey Gall. Right? 10 months ago, starching Mickey Gall, that is the only KO of Ramiz Brahimaj's career. So people are kind of looking at Ramiz as this knockout artist now, which that's not really the case. Right? He's pretty good on the feet, and he's got some decent striking. Then he goes out there and submits Billy Ray Goff with a nasty guillotine, right? And that's really what Ramiz Brahimaj is a submission ace. Right, he's got solid grappling skills, really, when it comes to the jiu-jitsu, right? With the wrestling, we've seen him struggle. And that's kind of the issue for me in this fight. While I think Ramiz is better than Austin Vanderford on the feet, is he leaps and bounds ahead of Austin when it comes to the striking? I don't necessarily think so. And he puts himself into the line of fire, right? He's not really setting up his shots that well. He kind of crashes forward, will take one to give one. And I feel like that's a little bit of a mess coming into a fight with a guy like Austin Vanderford, who had a long career over in Bellator, right? And these losses have not aged very well, in my opinion, right? Yeah, okay, I know Gagar's, a big name, but getting ground and pounded out from Gegard Mousasi 3.5 years ago, I don't think that's the greatest look. Then he goes out there and gets finished by Aaron Jeffrey, who's a pretty good fighter, but getting finished in those fights, right? I feel like Ramiz Brahimaj can hang with those guys, right? Then he goes out there and finishes Victor Romero and LFA with some nasty ground and pound, man. And when this guy is able to land a good shot on the feet and then follow things up or take you down and maul you, he's a problem, right? And we saw that against Nikolav Veretennikov, who's also on this card. He took his ass down over and over and over again, and the pressure, the pace, the control, and the ground and pound that Vanderford mixes in, it's a hard thing to deal with, right? Mr. Van Zandt. Right, and with Austin Vanderford, this win actually has aged pretty well, where he was able to beat Fabian Edwards 4 years ago. He's a very technical striker, Leon's brother. So Ramiz Brahimaj, while he's dangerous on the feet, he's not this KO artist that a lot of people seem to think he is now, right? Yeah, he KO'd Mickey Gall, but Mickey Gall's not that good. He just isn't. So I do see a scenario to where Ramiz Brahimaj, if he could stop the takedowns and keep the fight on the feet, I think he could bang Austin Vanderford's ass up on the feet. However, we've seen Brahimaj taken down and controlled by Court McGee, right? I know it was, 3 years ago? So, okay, yeah, Brahimaj, I think, has gotten a little bit better, right? We saw Themba Gorimbo have his way with him on the ground, and I don't like these losses. I don't, right? The Gorimbo loss, the Court McGee loss, I don't like those. Austin Vanderford is better than both of those guys when it comes to the wrestling, and his pace and his pressure that he brings, and if you sleep on his striking, he'll catch you with a shot, and that's what we saw in his LFA fight here, right? So I think Brahimaj is one of the better guys that Vanderford has probably ever fought. But is Ramiz going to catch Vanderford in a submission? I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure. That's a hard thing to do against Austin Vanderford. And on the feet, while Ramiz maybe is a little bit better, is he that much better than Vanderford? I don't think so. So I think Vanderford is able to pressure him. I think he mixes in the takedowns. I think he lands some good shots on the ground and is able to win a 29-28 decision over Ramiz Brahimaj. But listen, man, you can't sleep on Ramiz. He's gaining some confidence. He's got slick submission skills. That guillotine is nasty, especially if Austin's going to shoot with that head on that hip. He could find himself in some trouble. I feel like he's going to be aware of that, man. He's an experienced grappler training over at American Top Team. I think he'll be prepared. I like his pressure, his gas tank. And like I said, if you sleep on his striking, he could definitely hurt you on the feet. Give me Austin Vanderford to get this one done by decision. But don't sleep on Ramiz Brahimaj, man, because I think, he looks like he's the underdog coming in. He's definitely capable of getting this one done. This is a great matchup, but I think Austin Vanderford's pressure and wrestling will be the difference. Next, we have Punahele Soriano versus Nikolav Veretennikov. I went back and forth on this one, man, because I think that this is a very interesting scrap because with Soriano, he was a guy that was at middleweight for some time, right? And he's a big, strong guy. He's got some really, really powerful striking, and that's kind of what we've seen throughout his career, right? When he went out there and got the nasty finish here, I mean, you got to see on display when he decides to go and commits to his combinations, he can knock anybody out in this weight class. And him coming down to welterweight, the power has translated, right? And he looks pretty speedy for this weight class, right? Whenever you drop in weight class, sometimes I worry about how that speed is going to translate. I don't think that's really an issue for Soriano, right? And these 2 losses out of his last 5, I mean, he got finished by Roman Kopylov, who's a very dangerous striker. He would beat up on Nikolav Veretennikov, in my opinion. And then he goes out there against Dustin Stoltzfus, who I know lost to Kelvin Gastelum, but Stoltzfus is pretty game, man, right? He's got slick submissions. He's pretty game on the feet. But we've really kind of seen Soriano come into his own, man, especially at welterweight, getting a victory over Miguel Baez and then going out there and finishing Uros Medic, the doctor, man, who's a super fast kind of southpaw with good straight shots down the middle and getting a finish there. I think that that's pretty impressive, right? But what I do worry about in this fight is Nikolav, I think, is going to get overlooked here, right? Because, he's a guy that he's coming off of a split decision win over Francisco Prado, and neither guy looked really impressive. It was kind of an ugly, sloppy fight, right? And then he goes out there and gets finished on the ground by Vanderford, shoved him after the fight, and I was like, I don't know if the UFC is going to cut this guy or not after that. And then he goes out there, loses a split decision to Danny Barlow, right? He was on the Contender Series, I believe, and was able to make it the distance against a super good welterweight and Michael Morales. So we've seen these flashes with Veretennikov because on the feet, he doesn't have the greatest of defense, but he's got decent striking. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's decent. So I see a scenario where, he's got a couple inch reach advantage. If he can kind of stick from the outside, land some of those shots and time Soriano on the way in, I see where Nikolav can catch him, man. I think Nikolav is definitely live to kind of pull off the upset here, but I am going to go Soriano here. I think he drags Nikolav into a firefight, and I think that we see these guys banging out early on. Nikolav doesn't do the best job maintaining range, and when Soriano steps through and throws these combinations, man, the power, it's translated well down to 170 pounds from what we have seen so far. So when you're knocking out a guy like Uros Medic, who's got that good movement, who's got some power of his own, that tells me kind of what we're looking at here at welterweight for Soriano. I think he's able to knock out Nikolav in this fight, but I think someone does get a knockout because I think Nikolav is underrated on the feet, man. But I just think Soriano is really starting to hit his stride, and I think his power is a little bit different. Next, we have Patchy Mix versus Jakub Wiklacz. Interesting fight here, right? Because Patchy Mix is coming off of I wouldn't even go so far to say a disastrous debut, right? I picked Mario Bautista to win this fight because, one, Patchy was stepping in on a shorter notice, right? It was supposed to be Chito Vera versus Mario Bautista, but short notice or not, it's a tough fight. Mario Bautista, he's kind of the cream of the crop in this weight class. He's about to be fighting Umar Nurmagomedov, and there's people out there that think Mario's a tough matchup for Umar. Right, Mario's been on a crazy win streak. Good striker, well-rounded, and he was able to maintain range, and he was able to kind of stick and move and put points on the board against Patchy. But as the fight played out, we saw Patchy Mix start to do a little bit better on the feet, right? And what we know about Patchy Mix is on the ground, when it comes to the jiu-jitsu game, this guy is as good as it gets, man. He is a next-level guy when the fight hits the floor with the ground game. We know that, right? We saw that in PFL. We saw that in Bellator. Right, and that's why there was so much hype on Patchy Mix. He submitted Magomedov, who's a very good grappler. Goes out there and finishes Rafael Stotts, who's a solid fighter, right? Submits Sergio Pettis. Wins a split decision over Magomedov. Right, so he's got 2 victories over Magomedov. He's a very good grappler. So what's Jakub Wiklacz bring into this, right? He's making his UFC debut, fighting over in KSW, and this guy, I don't think he's ever had a KO in his victory. He's a grappler, right? And on the feet, he's got some power, but he's kind of sloppy, right? And if you're asking me who's the better striker, I mean, even though he looks stuck in the mud, flat-footed, stands straight up in the air, doesn't have that great a defense. He's durable, though. We've seen that. This is just a massive step down in competition, in my opinion. I don't even think Jakub Wiklacz beats any of these guys. He doesn't beat Magomedov. He doesn't beat Rafael Stotts. He doesn't beat Sergio Pettis, right? And he definitely doesn't beat Mario Bautista. I think this is a big step back. Maybe Jakub Wiklacz can rattle something off and get something going in the UFC after this fight. But if you're coming into this fight and you haven't finished anybody on the feet, I doubt you're finishing Patchy Mix, and you're going to come in and try to grapple because that's your strength against one of the better jiu-jitsu players in this entire weight class in the world, I don't think that goes very well for Jakub Wiklacz. I think that Patchy Mix submits Jakub Wiklacz in this fight, man. Maybe we see kind of a competitive fight. It plays out on the feet a little early. Maybe we see some grappling exchanges. But I feel like there's going to come a time when we're going to get this entanglement and Patchy Mix is going to find some sort of submission, man. This guy is good off of his back. He's good when he gets in those top positions. He's able to always find a way to put you in a bad position when you get into these grappling exchanges. I know Jakub has good submissions of his own. I just think Patchy Mix is a different level. I think he bounces back in a big way here. This is a big step down in competition from a guy like Mario Bautista, and even the guys that he was fighting in PFL Bellator, I think they are far better than someone like Jakub Wiklacz. Doesn't mean that Jakub can't be good at some point, but I think that this is a huge step up for him against a super. Don't forget about Patchy Mix, man. There's a lot of hype on this guy for a reason. Doesn't look great on the feet, but when it comes to the ground game and the submission abilities, he is that damn good. Give me Patchy Mix to find a submission in this fight. I think he gets it done. Next, we got Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos. I'm going to go Macy Chiasson by decision. Listen, it's pretty simple at this point. Look, Yana Santos is almost 36 years of age, right? We saw her get finished by Irene Aldana, loses a decision to Holly Holm 2.5 years ago, loses to Carol Hossa, right? Beats Chelsea Chandler, right? Chelsea Chandler's not that good. Goes out there and beats an older, kind of washed up Miesha Tate. But to a degree, Miesha Tate is still kind of shown at times that her grappling can be a little bit of an issue. But Macy Chiasson is more of a striker, but, she's 5'11", has a 72-inch reach. She's going to have a nice little reach advantage here. I think she's maybe a better striker. I think Yana Santos is a little underrated on the feet. So kind of competitive when it comes to the striking. But I feel like Chiasson's reach advantage, she's going to be able to stick and move from the outside. When it comes to the grappling, we've seen that Chiasson has competent grappling where I think she might have a little bit of an edge there against Yana Santos. She got a split decision victory, 3 years ago against Norma Dumont. That's aged well. Got finished by Irene Aldana as well, but she's got, a submission victory over Kianzad. She stopped Buena Silva with the cut and then goes out there and lost to Ketlin Vieira, which was kind of a disappointing loss. But this to me is a step down. While Santos does have decent striking, I feel like Santos is a little bit outmatched here to where Macy is a more well-rounded fighter. I think she sticks and moves, pushes her up against the fence, controls her, wins minutes. Give me Macy Chiasson to win this one by unanimous decision or 29-28. Next, we got Daniel Willie Cat Santos versus Joosang Yu. This is an interesting one here because Joosang Yu, I believe that he was on the fight to the UFC, road to the UFC. I believe it is over, at the Korean Zombies promotion. And this guy, he's kind of just got something to him, right? He's got some power. He's got a fun style to watch. He's got that long kind of stance, baiting you in, trying to throw that big, powerful, left hook that we saw. And it was a devastating knockout against Jekka, man. But here's the bottom line. Jekka got knocked out by a guy by the name of Anshul Jubilee. So if you're getting knocked out by Anshul Jubilee, I got to pump the brakes. I'm sorry, right? So while it was a super impressive knocked out by you, it's being overhyped a little bit. I know it was beautiful. I know it was a nasty KO and it was fun in the moment. And it's a great highlight. They're going to play it over and over and over again. But let's just call it what it is. Jekka's not that good. He springs into range. He's reckless, throws caution to the wind, and he is super available to being countered, right? And so everyone kind of looks at you as this knockout artist. That's not the reality, right? Out of his 9 victories, I think only 4 of them are by KO, right? So he has won some decisions. It's not like every fight is ending in the first round, right? We've seen him go to the distance. He's got a solid gas tank. But to me, I feel like he's a little bit outmatched in a couple areas here, right? Because Daniel Santos is training over at Shoot to Box, right? With Charles Oliveira and those guys. He's got the style. He moves forward, that Muay Thai style. He's very aggressive. I don't think he's ever been finished either, right? So he's durable. He's got decent leg kicks. He's got a dangerous guard to where if the fight hits the floor, I just don't know that that's a game that you is going to want to play. So we've seen Santos, especially in his last fight against Lee, he went out there and was chasing some of the takedowns, was mixing things up, landing some of the boxing combinations on the feet, throwing these kicks, mixing things up. And I feel like he's going to weaponize his experience here, right? Because his only loss over these past 5 fights was to Julio Arce, which, okay, right? But these past 3 wins, he finished John Castaneda with a knee. Got the victory over Munoz Jr. and is coming off of a solid performance against Lee, who people were kind of hyping up. Right, he was a smooth striker, good jab, good range management, and Santos was able to get to the inside, was able to mix things up. I think that's what we see in this fight. Now, of course, Joosang could go out there and land that devastating hook if Santos gets too aggressive, and he could knock his ass out for sure, because we have seen that Yu does have that power without question. And I like this kid, and I'm rooting for him. But right now, I'm favoring the experience and the well-roundedness of Daniel Santos to go out there and win a decision here. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think early on, maybe, Joosang is able to catch him with a shot, hurt him badly. But I think Santos is able to weather the storm. He's going to mix things up, shoot some of those takedowns, bang the leg kicks, move forward. And we've seen he could put quite a bit of volume out there. So I think that Yu starts fast, lands some of the damaging shots early, but then falls behind in terms of putting the points on the board. And that's where we see Santos start to pull ahead as the fight plays out. Give me Daniel Santos and his experience and well-roundedness to get this one done by, I'm going to say, a 29-28 decision. Next, we have Farid Basharat versus Chris Gutierrez. I went back and forth on this one, actually, right? I know that Farid Basharat is probably going to be, he looks like he's a pretty heavy favorite coming into this one. And that's for good reason, because the Basharat brothers, they're very good. They're very skilled. They're well-rounded. And we saw, the other Basharat, he got absolutely starched by Ricky Simon, right? But he was fighting a pretty good fight up until then, right? Javid, he was sticking and moving, and that's what Farid does, right? But the difference to me is I feel like Farid is a little bit more well-rounded, right? We saw him go out there and have a lot of success on the ground against Damon Blackshear, which I thought was just a super impressive performance because we've seen how good Blackshear is on the ground. I know Davey Grant was able to go out there and get that one done against Blackshear, but to go out there and take down Damon Blackshear, get in top positions and control him, that's telling me kind of where your grappling is at here, right? And that was 2.5 years ago. So I would like to think that he's improved. Got the submission victory over Rodriguez. He's coming off a decision win over Terry Lapilus, who's actually kind of good, right? And then goes out there and beats Victor Hugo by decision. So to me, Farid is going to look to spam the kicks from the outside. He's going to look to stick and move, right? And the problem with the Basharat bros is they don't really have that danger factor on the feet. While Farid does have the submission threat, he doesn't really have the power on the feet to kind of scare you, right? And that worries me here because while Chris Gutierrez is essentially a leg kick spammer from the outside, he'll switch stances, skirt around the octagon side, throw 1,000 leg kicks. That's his game plan, and that's pretty much what he's going to do. And he'll throw an occasional knee. His boxing's not that good, right? He does have the ability to catch you with something if you're not careful, right? Decent takedown defense. His movement, it's hard to get a hold of him. But over these past 5 fights, these losses aren't that bad. A Pedro Munoz loss, who's a leg kick spammer as well, right? 2.5 years ago. Goes out there, gets the win over Elatang Haili, loses to Song Yadong, but he's riding a nice 2-fight win streak, beat Quang Lei, and then goes out there and wins a split decision against John Castaneda, who's more of a pressure-based guy. I feel like Basharat goes out here and wins a close decision, man. I think this fight's going to be close, though. I think that this is going to be kind of a slow fight. I think it's going to be kind of a stinker, if I'm being honest. I think it's a slower fight. Right, I could see a scenario to where Gutierrez, if Farid can't figure out the range and those leg kicks are just landing and they're just kind of adding up, I could see where Chris gets ahead and the judges give him the nod because of the output, because of the leg kicks. Maybe he hinders the movement of Basharat. But I just feel like Farid's going to come in with a good game plan. I feel like he's going to stick and move from the outside. He's going to be throwing his own leg kicks, getting out of range, crashing Gutierrez up against the fence, taking him down a little bit if he can. And if he does get him down, I think he's got an advantage there to where he could definitely possibly find a submission if he's able to keep Gutierrez down, because we've seen Chris is pretty scrambly. So I feel like this fight plays out on the feet. While Basharat might have some success with the grappling, I don't know that he has a tremendous amount of success. So I think we're looking at more of a kickboxing fight here. I think that Basharat can put out the output. He can match the kicks. I think he can sting a little bit more with the boxing. And I do think that we will see some clinch work from him to win some of the minutes. Give me a close decision victory here for Farid Basharat. I'll say 29-28. I think he gets it done by decision. I think that this is more of a slower, grinded out type of fight with a bunch of leg kicks. Next, we have Edmund Shabazian versus Andre Muniz. I've went back and forth on this one as well. And the reason for that being is because I feel like at 36 years of age, we have clearly seen Andre Muniz, in my opinion, slow down. Now, given these losses are against some pretty good opposition, right? He got starched by Ikram Aliskerov, who I think is a super dangerous guy in the middleweight division, right? Gets a split decision victory over Park. I thought Park won this fight, so I count it as a loss. Goes out there and gets TKO'd, not subbed, TKO'd on the ground by Paul Craig. Horrible look, man. Horrible look, in my opinion, right? If you get subbed by Paul Craig, that's one thing. But to get TKO'd by Paul Craig, especially 2 years ago, not a good look. And then you go out there, you get submitted by Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen's pretty good on the ground, right? And then, 3 years ago is basically the last real victory for Andre Muniz, which was against Uriah Hall. And what we've seen from Andre Muniz is, he's 6'1", got a 78-inch reach, doesn't have the best defense, throws some of those front kicks out there. And I feel like he's kind of got this underrated striking to where, he's more of a submission ace. I think he's got like 15 submissions on his record, does have some knockouts as well. It's more so that his grappling is kind of overrated, where his striking is underrated, right? And in this fight, I feel like he's outmatched on the feet. I think Edmund Shabazian, especially over his past 5 fights, we've seen Shabazian, he got finished by Fluffy Hernandez. We know how good Fluffy is. Goes out there, starches AJ Dobson, was destroying GM3, and then got caught in a triangle as the fight played out, right? Goes out there and starches Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka's pretty much just a wrestler with nothing else. Goes out there and wins a decision over Petroski, and we just saw Rouston smoke Andre Petroski. So how well is that actually aged for Edmund Shabazian? This is a guy in Shabazian who's got sharp striking, man. 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. He's got, a sharp right hand down the middle, and he starts fights really, really well to where I could see him getting ahead early. I think he could catch Andre Muniz and knock him out. But where I worry is kind of where the ghost of GM3's past, the ghost of GM3 past showed up in this fight, where you're putting a beat down on GM3 and he finds a way to get it done. And I worry about Shabazian in this fight because while he's looked quite a bit better, I could see a scenario where he's kind of beating on Muniz, and then Muniz kind of hangs around, and then is able to kind of land a shot, club and sub Shabazian in the later rounds. I could see that. I absolutely could see that. But telling me that his last real victory, right? Because I thought this was a robbery. His last real victory was 3 years ago against Uriah Hall. I feel like Shabazian going in against these grapplers has kind of prepared him for a fight like this, right? I know Muniz is kind of dangerous on the ground, but I feel like Shabazian striking is sharp, man. And I feel like coming off the KO loss to Ikram, Shabazian is not Ikram, man. Not at all. But I think that Edmund Shabazian finds a knockout here. I think Muniz's defense is bad. I think he's slowed down quite a bit when I go back and I watch some of these fights. And I feel like if you're a stationary target, a sitting duck in front of a sharpshooter like Shabazian, I feel like Edmund goes out there and gets a KO here, man. Shabazian has the ability to put your lights out. He does. And I don't think Muniz is that good on the feet. While I feel he's underrated, I don't think he's that good. I think Shabazian snipes him early in round number 1 and gets a knockout. But like I said, if Shabazian can't get him out of there and he plays around and plays this kind of game, I could see Muniz haunting him as the fight plays out. So I think Muniz is definitely live in this one, but I'm going to go Edmund Shabazian. I just think he's the better fighter at this point in time. Next, we have Ateba Gautier, the featured prelim versus Ozzy Diaz. This is cruel by the UFC, man. This is absolutely cruel. Listen, it's a fight you never know, but at the same time, we know. Okay, listen, Ozzy Diaz, since coming into the UFC, he was on the Contender Series. He got starched by Joe Pyfer, and that's kind of what he was known for a while, right? That was 3 years ago. Goes out there and finishes Chuck Campbell in LFA. Finishes Lewis over in LFA. Comes back into the UFC. Gets finished by Zhang Minyang up at 205. Then he comes down to, I believe this was at 185 against DeJordan Santos. He was an underdog here, and I picked him because he's got some decent striking. Ozzy Diaz is not like a total scrub on the feet, but the problem is Ateba Gautier is an absolute monster. 6'4", 81-inch reach, 23 years old. This guy, he's a problem, man. His power is next level. He measures you. He finds his openings. And when he uncorks these combinations, man, nobody seems to be able to get out of the way. And when he lands, it is just different. I think he goes out there and brutally KOs Ozzy Diaz within the first couple minutes in the first round. Ateba, it's very Ngannou-esque, man, right? He's from Cameroon as well. He's got, he's just yoked out of his mind, moves forward, and the minute he lands anything, you just see these guys just go, oh, man, this is a different kind of power. I think that that's what we see here. Ozzy Diaz, he's not a stick and move, super technical guy. He kind of banks on getting into these exchanges, moving forward, kind of pushing the pace. That is a disaster against a guy like Gautier. Ateba's going to knock him out badly, man, in the first round. The UFC knows what they're doing with this matchmaking. This is for Gautier to go out there and get a nasty highlight reel KO. I think he does it in the first couple minutes. It's going to be violent. Gautier by first round knockout. All right, up to the main card. The very first fight on the main card, we got Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov. I've been kind of back and forth on this one a little bit because I see kind of an argument for both guys to win because Abus Magomedov, he came into the UFC, made his debut. There was a lot of hype on him, right? And he was kind of a can crusher, right? And he comes into the UFC, and we saw early in the Strickland fight, we're like, wow, this guy's good. He's got good front kicks, good movement, he's got some power, right? But he absolutely faded quick and early in that fight, and it was a disaster. Got thrown right into a 5-round Apex main event with a guy like Sean Strickland. And if you're going to gas out against someone like Strickland or against anybody, really, you're going to run into some issues, right? And that's exactly what happened in this fight. So this was kind of a disaster for Abus. Then comes back and loses to a super, good guy in the middleweight division in Kyle Bahallo. But now he's rattled off 3 wins, gets a victory over Alves, goes out there and submits Bruno Ferreira, face some adversity, right? And Bruno Ferreira is super dangerous, crazy power, swings for the bleachers, man, right? There's openings to take him down. And that's exactly what Abus did. Battled back and was able to get that one done. Then he goes out there and wins a decision against Michel Pereira, and that was a good performance, right? But again, we're seeing Michel Pereira get finished recently by a lot of guys, right? But at the end of the day, Abus Magomedov is well-rounded. He's got good kicks. He's got a solid ground game, and we've seen him improving, and it seems like his gas tank is getting quite a bit better, but I don't know if I necessarily trust it. I don't know if I trust it. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage coming in. He's got a wealth of experience, but I've been high on Joe Pyfer for a while, man. A guy that is leading the salt mines, right? Back up the salt trucks because Joe Pyfer, he's in charge when it comes to being probably the saltiest fighter in the UFC. And listen, we could say whatever we want about Joe Pyfer and his saltiness. This guy's an absolute savage, man. He's got some devastating power, right? He has some of the most power in this weight class without question. If he lands, he could put just about anybody out. We saw him do it to GM3. We saw him do it to a dangerous guy in Abdul Razak Al Hassan and then was able to submit him. Right? And I feel like that's the thing about Pyfer that you don't get to see a lot of. He's got a really good ground game. He's got really good jiu-jitsu skills, right? Training with Paul Felder and Sean Brady and those guys. I mean, he's really, really well-rounded, man. Right? And then he goes out there and gets a 5-round Apex main event against a savvy veteran in Jack Hermanson, which I know that hasn't aged well. That was a good learning opportunity for Pyfer because if that was a 3-rounder, he would have beat the brakes off of Hermanson because he definitely won 2 out of the first 3. Right? So kind of a mistake, in my opinion, by the UFC giving him a 5-rounder that early. Then we see him bounce back and brutally KO Marc-Andre Barriou, who put a dent in the head of Bruno Silva and went out there and gave Sean Magomedov a tough fight. Then he goes out there and he's dropping Kelvin Gastelum left and right. We know that Kelvin Gas Bubble has a different kind of chin, right? So at the end of the day, Joe Pyfer hits like a truck, man. He's got powerful hands. He's got solid boxing. And I feel like his ground game is incredibly underrated, man. And I think that's kind of the difference in this fight is if things are not going well for Abus on the feet, I don't think he can rely on the ground game here because I don't know that he's a better grappler than Joe Pyfer. And in terms of the gas tank, even though we saw Pyfer fade against, Jack Hermanson, that went the distance. That went the distance where we saw Abus fold in a 5-round fight against Strickland. Right? I know that this is only 3 rounds, but I still don't trust the gas tank of Abus Magomedov. I think that Joe Pyfer is able to find a knockout in this fight, man. I think early on, we're going to see both guys. We're going to see Pyfer come out aggressive. Abus is going to be very cautious. I think he's going to look to try to level change, try to kind of drag this thing out as long as he can, throw those front kicks. I think Pyfer is going to be ready for that, man. The power on the side of Joe Pyfer, it is just different, man. It is. It absolutely is. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time until Joe Pyfer connects. The shots that he was landing on Kelvin Gastelum, if he lands those on Abus Magomedov, he's going to knock him out, man. I think it's going to be competitive, in the first round. And then in the second round, we're going to see Abus slow down just a little bit. And that's where that pressure of Pyfer is going to start to pay off. And like I said, I think Joe Pyfer just might be the better grappler as well. So he's probably the better grappler, better gas tank, and he's definitely more dangerous on the feet in terms of the power. I think Joe Pyfer finds a knockout in this fight. I think it's going to take a very strategic game plan for Abus to get this one done. I just think that's going to be a tall order here against a super dangerous hitter in Joe Pyfer. Give me Joe by 2nd round knockout. Next, we got Josh Emmett versus Youssef Zalal. I'm going to go Youssef Zalal, Mr. Speedy Gonzalez by decision, and I think he's just going to absolutely school Josh Emmett. Listen, Josh Emmett's, he's almost 41 years of age now. And at one point, Josh Emmett was a super dangerous guy in this weight class. He still is, right? Josh Emmett has the ability to knock anybody out in this weight class. But we all know what Josh is going to do. He's going to move forward. He's not really going to look to wrestle. And even if he does, he can't take you down and hold you. So it's not like he's going to take Zalal down and control him. Okay, so he's going to move forward, spam big overhand rights, throw him, maybe an occasional tight left hook. That's it. There's no jab. There's really no leg kicks. He stands super heavy and low. And Josh Emmett is struggling against these faster fighters. That's the reality, right? He went to a split decision with Calvin Kattar. Again, that was 3 years ago. Got submitted by Yair Rodriguez. Yair was banging him up on the feet bad, right? Ilia Topuria put on a boxing clinic against him. Right, starches Bryce Mitchell with a brutal, one of the most nastiest, KOs we've ever seen. Then goes out there and loses to Lerone Murphy. And Lerone Murphy's a tactician, right? But it was the speed and the elusiveness. And if Lerone Murphy is giving you problems, Youssef Zalal is a hell of a lot faster than Lerone Murphy. As a technical and, as fancy as Lerone is, I feel like Youssef Zalal kind of takes that to the next level when it comes to that. And this guy, since coming back into the UFC, man, right, has been rattling him off. Sub Billy Quarantillo. Sub Jarno Aarons, sub Jack Shore, and it's coming off of a performance that he was kind of getting shit on for, right? Went out there, was running around, sticking and moving against Calvin Kattar, and people are like saying he's a runner, he's a track star. But look, I thought it was impressive because, to go out there and stick and move like that for 15 minutes and absolutely just dot up Calvin Kattar with the jab, the kicks, just constantly mixing up the targets, changing stances, angles, all these different things. It's just a lot to deal with. And I think he's going to frustrate Josh Emmett with the lateral movement, kicks up the middle. He's going to attack the legs, sting him with the jab. And again, if Emmett does want to try to take him down to slow down the fight, Zalal has got good submissions. So I think Youssef Zalal is going to pull this one off by decision. I think he goes out there and wins 30-27. I think he's just going to pick and poke, dance around, frustrate the hell out of Emmett, and take him to school, man. Mr. Speedy Gonzalez, Youssef Zalal, is going to go out there, stick and move his way to a one-sided decision over Josh Emmett. It's going to take, one of those big gnarly right hands from Josh Emmett, in my opinion, to get this thing done. He's just significantly slower in my eyes than Zalal. Speed kills in this case. All right, featured fight on the main card. We have Jiri Prochazka versus Khalil Rountree Jr. So here's what worries me for Jiri in this fight. Jiri Prochazka, you're going to have to finish Jiri if you're Khalil Rountree, I think, right? I just don't necessarily think that Khalil's going to go out there and win a decision against Jiri. Yuri's the kind of guy to where you can maybe get ahead a little bit early, but if you are getting ahead, Jiri is then going to move forward. He is going to throw caution to the wind, and he is going to try to make something happen. We saw that in the Rakic fight. Right, and I feel like that was kind of the one where it was like, look, Rakic was sticking and moving from the outside, banging those leg kicks, destroying the lead leg of Jiri, and it's like, that's exactly how you have to fight Jiri if you're Rakic. And then Jiri just weathered the storm. You saw him start to just break Rakic. You could see it, right? And the reason that I'm bringing up this matchup is I know Khalil Rountree's a southpaw, but I think he's just going to try to blast leg kicks, man. And I know he's a southpaw, so they're going to be coming to the inside up against Jiri, right? A little switch kick, kicks to the body. Rountree's got some of the nastiest Muay Thai we've ever seen in MMA, I think. Right? And his confidence is riding high. Right? Ever since going out there and, winning a couple rounds against Alex Pereira and looking really good in that fight where a lot of people were counting him out. Right? And then he's coming off of a dominant decision victory over Jamal Hill. Right? Starches Anthony Smith. Went on a nice streak, right? Not against the best guys. So I worry on the fact that is Jiri going to be able to deal with the leg kicks of Rountree? Because Rountree kicks like a horse, man. He's got some nasty leg kicks, and I could just see him tagging those legs of Jiri Prochazka and making it a problem. But if you're not Alex Pereira, we had seen Jiri Prochazka essentially as the answer for everybody else, right? Finishes Glover Teixeira in that crazy fight, comes back and beats Rakic, finishes Jamal Hill. You just hit, instinct mode, matrix, bobbing and weaving, slipping and ripping in the pocket. It was beautiful. And now Jiri Prochazka's got a master's degree, right? So this guy's going to be coming out here, ready to rock and roll, right? Jiri Prochazka, he's not playing around. This is a well-rounded individual, man, right? I think Jiri Prochazka is able to get this one done. I think he finds a knockout. I think the first round, you're going to see Rountree kind of bobbing and moving, right? He's training with, especially for his last fight against, Jamal Hill. He brought in John Haggerty, the really good Muay Thai fighter over in One Championship. He brought in his striking coach to really dial in the Muay Thai. Right, so I think Rountree's really sharpened up his skills, and I think that he's definitely a legit guy in this weight class, but Khalil's hands are not that great. He kind of wings these shots where I think Jiri's going to be able to time them with good straight punches down the middle. Jiri's awkward, herky-jerky style, right? Khalil's one of those guys that does well against these more technical, traditional-based strikers. You're used to seeing where these shots are coming from, where Jiri, shots are coming from odd angles. right? Which kind of gets Jiri into trouble because his chin is on a platter. He's there to be hit, and that scares me. I could see Rountree beating up his legs, hindering the movement of Jiri, and starting to put him away as the fight plays out, right? And banging him up with these kicks, right? I feel like the kicks, it could be a problem. But I feel like it's going to kind of be like the Rakic fight, where you're going to see Khalil have a lot of success with the leg kicks. Then Jiri's going to be like, all right, man, F it. I got to just mosey forward. And we've seen Khalil wilt, man. He will fade. If you put that pressure on him and you don't go away and you drag him into this kind of fight where you're putting heavy pressure on him, we see Rountree kind of fade as the fight plays out. If you go out there and you try to have this back and forth technical fight, like Jamal Hill in this fight, he didn't do anything to make Khalil work. And if you make Khalil work, we see him kind of fade. So I think Jiri Prochazka, right, the leg kicks are going to be a factor for Khalil in this fight. I think he's going to target him because we know that Jiri struggles against him with, guys that are going to spam leg kicks out there. And I know Khalil's fast, he's explosive, he's dangerous. But I feel like as he's exploding into range, we're going to see Jiri Prochazka slip and rip with some nasty shots with the boxing, man. And I think Jiri's able to catch him. I think first round is competitive. We're going to see the kicks from Rountree, and then Jiri's going to come out, apply the pressure, and he's going to catch him with a shot as he angles off, right hand down the middle or something. Give me Jiri Prochazka to catch Khalil Rountree and knock him out. But like I said, I worry about those leg kicks because we've seen against a guy like Rakic, who I know has got pretty good leg kicks, I would say that Khalil Rountree's got some better kicks. And I know it's that southpaw orthodox matchup, but Rountree will still throw them to the inside of that leg, right? We saw him banging up Jamal Hill's legs. I think he's going to try to do that against Jiri because Jiri struggled against leg kicks in it throughout his entire career. But I think Jiri Prochazka is able to kind of warrior his way through this one as he does many times. Give me Jiri to get this one done by second round knockout. Co-main event, we have Merab Dvalishvili versus Cory Sandhagen. A lot of people are writing off Cory. And I feel like I said in the beginning of the video, right, if there's, and I've said this many times, if there's ever some wizard out there that can throw all these potions together, throw all the tricks, blend it together, and come up with this secret formula to go out there and beat a freak like Merab Dvalishvili, it feels like that guy would be Cory Sandhagen. But here's the problem. I'm just not convinced that you can be just this super cerebral fighter, be really technical, have a well-rounded skill set, stick and move, pick and poke, and just outscore Merab. I don't know that anybody's going to be able to beat him that way, right? The only guy that came close was Umar Nurmagomedov, right? Which is why I think a lot of us want to see that rematch at some point, is because how damn good that fight was. So the only one that I think could probably do that is Umar. I don't think Cory can do that, man. Cory's got slick submissions, right? He's 5'11". He's a longer, rangy guy for this weight class, right? And what we've seen throughout his career is Cory was more of a striker, right? Knocking guys out with flying knees, spinning wheel kicks, to where now he's kind of became a leg kick spammer, will throw some elbows, but he's kind of relied on the grappling, right? Was mixing things up well, cut Song up with some nice elbows, right? Got the split decision victory. It wasn't a split decision, right? That judge just was hating on Cory. This was a dominant win for Sandhagen. But again, he just went out there, took him down, controlled him on the ground. Did the same thing against Rob Font. So when things have been kind of, I don't want to say uncomfortable for Cory, he's just had an edge with the grappling. He's not going to have that here. Goes out there and gets dominated by Umar Nurmagomedov. I think it was a 50-45 decision win for Umar. Right? And what we've seen for Cory is he's really scrambly, right? He's coming off of a win over Davison Figueiredo, put him in the 50-50 position. Figgy blew his knee out. Here's the problem. I'm just not convinced that he could go out and beat Merab like that. I feel like the only guy that has a chance to do that would be Umar. I just don't think Cory's, what's he going to do? Leg kick? His only shot to win this fight is by landing a flying knee or something, I feel, right? That's what it feels like to me, man. As much as I would love to see Cory win this, I can't stand Merab, find him annoying, right? I feel like Merab's gonna dominate this fight, man. He's coming off, dominated 50-45 Yan, who beat up on Cory, dominated Cejudo, carried him around like a baby, beat O'Malley, beat Umar, who I thought was the guy that could beat him, submitted Sean O'Malley, so now he's finishing guys. And that's the thing about Merab. We're seeing him constantly improve. His striking is getting better. He's saying, I'm going to come out here and strike, which I don't necessarily buy that. But I feel like he can do that to a degree. He's going to feint the level changes. He's going to take Cory down. We know Merab doesn't necessarily do the best at keeping guys down and controlling them. But now that he got a submission victory over O'Malley, I feel like that's going to be something playing into the mind of Cory Sandhagen. Throwing leg kicks, right? Cory's not the easiest guy to hold down. I know he's got slick jiu-jitsu skills. Every time you take Cory down, he's threatening submission, so Merab's going to have to be careful. But with the pace, the pressure, the strength, the low center of gravity, the freak alien that Merab is, I feel like he's going to go out here and beat Cory Sandhagen by decision. Maybe he catches him with a shot. You know, he says he wants to knock him out. Maybe that happens. Maybe he submits Cory. But I'm going to say that maybe Cory wins an early round in this fight, but I think Merab is going to dominate this one and win 4 rounds to 1 and get a dominant decision victory over Cory Sandhagen. I'm just not convinced that you could come in, stick and move, do all those kinds of things. I think you have to go in there, throw caution to the wind, take some crazy risks to give yourself an opportunity to beat a guy like Merab. Maybe Cory does that, right? He's got that nasty flying knee. He's got good leg kicks, switches stances. He's a hard guy to track down. But the fact that we've seen Cory kind of slow down with the striking a little bit to where he becomes dependent upon the leg, the leg kicks, doesn't let his hands go a ton. I know he's working with Trevor Whitman. He has looked a little bit better to me when it comes to the boxing. I don't think it's enough, man. I think that the pace of Merab is going to be a problem. I think he moves forward, mixes things up, kind of drowns Cory, just does what Merab has basically always been doing, man. And I feel like his striking has gotten better, which is scary. And now that he's, shown that he can submit somebody, I feel like it's a very, very steep hill for Cory to climb. I give him a chance because I know that every time you take him down, he threatens submissions like we saw in the Dillashaw fight, right? We've seen his grappling improve. He's a hard guy to hold down. He does have the flying knee, some of those things. But I feel like it's just going to take one of those well-timed knees or something to beat a guy like Merab. Merab, different kind of beast, man. I think he walks through Cory Sandhagen. Last but not least, if you are still around and watching, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. We have arrived at the main event. Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. So the first fight, it's competitive, right? Magomed Ankalaev, right? I feel like a lot of people felt like if you said that Alex Pereira was going to stop all the takedowns, that he would probably win against Magomed Ankalaev, but he stopped the takedowns, which is very encouraging. But the problem was he got outstruck by Ankalaev, right? And I said the first time coming into the fight, I picked Ankalaev to beat him by KO in fight number 1. And a lot of that was because Ankalaev's an elite striker, right? A lot of people, they just don't like Ankalaev. They don't want to give him the credit, whatever. This guy's a high-level striker, man. He feints the level change as well. He waves that lead hand around, kind of, bobs himself up and down to kind of threaten with a possible takedown. And then he's got really fast hands. He's got really good boxing, good kicks. He outstruck Poatan in the first fight, right? And I feel like a detail that gets missed, he attacked the lead leg of Pereira very well, was throwing those front kicks up the middle, pushing him back, and he pressured the hell out of Alex in the first fight. And we've never seen Pereira really on the back foot like that in MMA. We saw it in kickboxing. We saw a guy by the name of Artem Vahitov who pressured Alex Pereira and had a tremendous amount of success. We know that Magomed is going to look to do that again. He's going to look to pressure. I think he's going to be hunting for the finish in this one. He dominated the lead hand battle, was controlling the lead hand of Pereira, nullifying the left hook. He was very aware of that. I think Pereira is going to look to throw more leg kicks in this fight. He did it in round 1, round 5. I think he's going to look to jab more as Ankalaev closes the distance, because the bottom line is Ankalaev is way faster. He's way faster. He is the more complete MMA fighter here. But we know that Alex has the great equalizer, which is the left hook. He's got a ton of thud in his hands, man, but to me, he's at a serious speed disadvantage. So what's he going to do to try to combat that? I think he's going to have more confidence from stopping the takedowns in the first fight. He's going to open up a little bit more. I think he's going to bang those leg kicks, right? Which, yeah, they're not the same when you're facing an orthodox-style opponent. We see Pereira flick him out there with ease. So against the southpaws, he can still land him, but it takes a little bit more effort to where you got to throw the switch and you're out of position. To where Ankalaev was starting to time those with a left hand. So I think Pereira's going to play defense, spam a bunch of leg kicks, front kicks up the middle, mix up the kicking game, and try to add more variety into this fight with confidence that his takedown defense can hold up because it did in the first fight. But the problem was Ankalaev was attacking the double leg a lot, which I think he's going to try to adjust to the single leg here because Jan Blachowicz had a lot of success with that against Pereira, right? So that was kind of a mistake that Ankalaev was making because Alex Pereira has very, very strong hips. He's very, very good at defending against the double leg. He grabs his underhooks, defends very well up against the fence. Ankalaev was getting deep on some of those shots, but Pereira's a strong guy, man. So I think Ankalaev's going to look for some single legs here. I think he's going to look to mix things up, threaten the level changes to open up the striking. He's going to try to attack the lead leg of Pereira again, those front kicks. I think Pereira's going to be more aggressive here. He's saying that he wasn't at 100% the first time around. I think he's going to come out. I think that he's very salty towards Ankalaev. There's some bad blood coming in. I think Pereira is going to try to hunt Ankalaev down, and I think Ankalaev is going to try to hunt him down, which is why I think we get a firefight, a technical chess match with a fire element to it. We're going to see some of those exchanges where we're going, woo, that left hook barely missed. Woo, that left hand of Ankalaev barely missed. But at some point, someone is going to land. And I'm going to go with the speedster. I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev to get a knockout in this fight, and I think it's going to happen in the second or third round. I'll say second round here. I think that Alex Pereira is going to look very good early in this fight. I think the leg kicks are going to be money. We've seen Ankalaev get a little bit better at dealing with them, but he's still super vulnerable to them, man. I think Poatan's going to chew up that lead leg early, look to mix up those front kicks. He's going to try to make it a point to move forward, right? When he was getting bullied around by Artem Vahitov in kickboxing, his adjustment in the rematch, even though Pereira won that first fight, I thought Vahitov won that one. Then they ran it back, and then Pereira lost that one, and I thought he won that one. So I thought the judges got those backwards, but the point was the adjustments that Pereira made were, okay, you were pressuring me the whole time. I got to be more aggressive. Front kicks, I got to get you moving backwards. Ankalaev is going to look to control the center. He's going to look to dominate the lead hand battle. He's going to feint the level changes. I think he's going to look to grapple a little bit more to try to get in the head of Pereira, make him a little bit more hesitant, to where we see Pereira, we saw him hesitant at times, afraid to throw because of the speed, the threat of the takedown, whatever it was. It's an interesting rematch, man, because Ankalaev, when he's had to run fights back, he did it twice against Cutelaba, ran that one back, got the KO. Ran it back on Walker, got the KO. So he's flawless in rematches. And Pereira's pretty much flawless in rematches as well, all through kickboxing. In the UFC against Adesanya, he got knocked out in the rematch, but, 3-1, man, you know? And outside of that, Pereira's kind of had the answers for everybody. But we've seen his defense lets him down. He's got lazy defense. And I feel like that's what this comes down to for me. The speed and the well-roundedness of Ankalaev, right? But also the defense. Who's got the better defense here, right? If you got two great offenses and they're both getting into a shootout, it's going to come down to whose defense has that one stop in them. Who has that defense that, when called upon, can make the necessary plays to close it out? I feel like that's Ankalaev. He's hard to hit, man. We've never seen Ankalaev really rocked. He's hard to hit clean. Pereira's easy to hit clean. Doesn't move his head. Relies on the long guard too much. And I feel like the speed of Ankalaev with those straight shots, I feel he's going to be able to catch Alex Pereira. I think Alex is going to be aggressive coming into this fight. We're going to get into those moments to where Poatan maybe lands a good shot at some point. I think he's going to try to jab and leg kick, right? Try to set up that left hook. He's too dependent upon it. And when you pressure the hell out of him and make him uncomfortable, he becomes very predictable and just spams that left hook out there. I think Ankalaev's going to come out, make some adjustments, be even more aggressive this time, having been in there with Pereira. Both of these guys know the range. Both of these guys know what to expect. They're going to have their adjustments. I think Ankalaev comes out here more aggressive, just like he did in the rematch against Cutelaba, against Walker. I understand Pereira's a lot more dangerous than those guys. I think Ankalaev just has the answers, man. He's dangerous. He's fast. He's super hard to hit. His defense is excellent. Give me Ankalaev to win this one by second round knockout. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Please give it a like. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.